Hey everyone, I hope your new year is off to a great start and that you're able to get back into the swing of things a little bit. I know routines are so important, so hopefully you've been able to do that not only at home but within your classroom as well. So, if you're new here, this podcast is all about supporting first year teachers during their first year of teaching. But as always, we welcome all educators, whether you're a student teacher, whether you've been teaching for a while, or whether this really is your first year of teaching. If you haven't done so already, there are two teaching guides in the show notes today. One is for student teachers and one is for first year teachers. Each guide is filled with tips that are going to help you rock your student teaching or help you blossom into the teacher that you were born to be. Last week, when we kicked off 2021, I shared with you that we were switching things up a bit on the podcast for the next few weeks or so. Instead of interviewing first year teachers and sharing about their journeys, I'm going to take the next few weeks to do episodes that are timely and filled with helpful tips and insight, especially for new teachers. For this week's episode, with everything that's been going on in the world lately, I thought it would be appropriate to talk about recognizing anxiety in students. This topic is really near and dear to my heart, and I know it's important for all educators to hear. So, with that, I will see you inside of today's episode.
Welcome to the North Dakota Teaching Podcast. Whether you're a first-year teacher, veteran teacher, or just a mom trying to gain some new insights, you are right where you are meant to be. Kayla Durkin, founder of the Blossoming Teacher course, is passionate about helping new teachers blossom into the teacher they were born to be. Kayla wants to help inspire teachers to be their best self, whether that means sharing about personal or professional development, self-care, or the latest and most effective teaching strategies. Through this podcast, you will hear from real teachers sharing their stories about teaching, all with one main goal in mind: to be able to make an impact and help other teachers blossom. And with that, here is your host, Kayla Durkin.
Hey everyone, welcome back. As I mentioned just a bit ago, today we are going to be discussing some of the signs of anxiety in students. Before we get started though, I just wanted to take a few minutes and to have us do some reflecting. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to ask you a series of questions. So if you have a paper and pencil nearby, you should definitely grab it. I want you to be able to look back on your answers when we're done so that you can reflect on them. If you don't have a paper and pencil right now, or if you're in the car driving, you can make two decisions right now. You can decide to make these notes mentally in your brain, and hopefully you can remember them when we're done, or you can pause this and you can listen to it at another time when you can grab that paper and pencil. So, whatever choice you made, we're going to get started. I want to ask you a couple of questions, and each time I'm going to just pause for just a second to give you time to write. Of course, if you need more time, just hit pause on this episode. So, let's get started. I want you to think about some times that you have felt anxious or overwhelmed. And again, if you can write these down, please do. And if not, take a mental note. So, list a few times that you have felt anxious or overwhelmed in a situation. What caused you to feel anxious? What symptoms or signs did you have of feeling anxious? How did you respond? How did you treat others? Did you talk to anyone about the way you were feeling? If you didn't talk to anyone, why didn't you? If you did talk to someone, did it help? And lastly, when did those feelings of anxiousness go away? Hopefully, you had enough time to answer each of those questions, but if you didn't, feel free to go back through, click pause where you need to, and make sure that you have something written down for all of those, or at least take a mental note. I do want you to take a chance to come back to this later. So, I don't want to say that feeling anxious is normal because I don't want being anxious to be a normal part of your life. But I do want you to know that most people do go through a season or a time in their life where they felt anxious or overwhelmed. For me, when I'm feeling anxious or overwhelmed, I tend to be a little bit shorter with my husband. I tend to shut down. I really internalize everything, and more times than not, my coping mechanism is to simply do something mindless. This is going to sound crazy because you guys know I hate cleaning, but when I'm feeling really, really overwhelmed, I tend to start cleaning something, to organize a closet, to go through and make something look better than it did before. And that's simply because I need to do something mindless that takes my mind off of all these feelings that I'm actually feeling and should be processing. Sometimes, though, I just have to lay there and watch TV. I can't even read a book or anything because the feelings are just so strong and honestly just so overwhelming. So let's flip things a little bit and let's start to brainstorm why students might have anxiety. Again, just take a second and think to yourself, why might students have anxiety? If you need more time, feel free to hit pause. But here are just a few of the reasons why I've noticed students have felt anxiety. Possibly from their peers. Maybe there was friend drama. Maybe something happened at recess or at lunch. Maybe something happened online. Maybe someone's been bullying them. Maybe they're feeling really lonely. So, those are some examples of why they might be feeling anxious due to their peers. But school wise, they could feel anxious because of an assignment that they need to do, because of a project that's happening, because of a big test that's coming up. And when we think of projects, they could feel anxious because of the partners that they're working with, because of the group they've been assigned to. They might feel anxious because of their appearance. Maybe their clothes are dirty. Maybe they're self conscious about how their hair looks or that they got a haircut. Maybe they have some acne. Maybe they were made fun of because of something. There are so many reasons of why they could feel anxious due to their appearance. Maybe they're just feeling anxious because they're a perfectionist. Maybe they feel like things need to be perfect and they don't want to present something or they don't want to do something until it's absolutely perfect. But as we all know, another big reason that we might see anxiety in our students is because of their home life. Maybe there's abuse going on at home. Maybe their parents or their guardians are doing drugs or alcohol. Maybe they have divorced parents. Their parents are getting a divorce. Maybe one of their divorced parents is coming to town for the weekend, or they need to go stay with that parent for the weekend and they don't have a good relationship with them. Maybe a parent is back in town, or maybe a parent's away on a business trip and they're staying with someone they're not used to. There are so many reasons why home life could cause anxiety in students as well, aside from things that are going on within the classroom every single day. Now, thinking back to some of these examples of why our students might be feeling anxious, I want you to think about what types of behaviors have they displayed when they've been anxious. You might notice behaviors such as them feeling withdrawn, refusal, being angry, avoidance, having stomach aches, being out of control, being irritable, being emotional, being louder than normal, being quieter than normal, being more talkative than normal, not talking as much as they usually do. When some of these things are going on and they've been going on for a while, we might start to see even bigger signs and symptoms, such as appearance changes, emotional changes, social changes. Maybe they're hanging out with a different group of friends. Maybe they're coming to school exhausted and they're normally peppy and happy to be there. Maybe they're not performing as well as they typically do. Maybe they're missing school because they don't want to come because something at school is causing them anxiety. Or maybe they're even honestly having panic attacks. With any of these signs and symptoms, we want to make sure that we are being proactive and trying to find out why these behaviors are happening. So, how do we help our students? Well, on the smaller, occasional, or situational based type of anxiety, we might simply just take time to talk to our students, to get on their level, to connect with them, to make sure we're checking in on them. Maybe we ask them to have lunch together, but we can also accommodate for them, especially if it's an assignment based anxiety or a testing based anxiety. We can accommodate for any of our students. They don't need an IEP, they don't need a 504. Any student can have an accommodation. So maybe they're going to take their test in a different setting, or maybe they're going to take it at a different time, or maybe they're going to have a little bit longer time than some of the other students. We can also be compassionate, we can offer empathy. Maybe we need to show them how to do some deep breathing techniques. We can offer them some quiet time. We can give them a break to go get a drink from the fountain. Maybe we know there's a transition throughout the day that gives them a lot of anxiety. So maybe we just send them out of the classroom to drop a note off at another teacher's classroom, and then they come back, the transition's over, and they're ready to work. Maybe we have a cool down corner we can use in our classroom. These are just some small things that we can do every single day that are going to help with those daily anxious and overwhelming feelings that we're seeing within our students. But at the same time, sometimes these small things can become big things. So we always want to make sure that we are documenting, that we're seeking support from admin or counselors, OTs, special ed, our psych department, whoever we can talk to so that we can get some insight on them, especially when we are first year teachers. It's okay to not know everything. Even if you've been teaching for a while, it's okay to not know everything. That's why we have an amazing team of teachers within our buildings that we can seek out advice and support from. And please know, if you absolutely feel like there is nobody in your building that you can talk to, I'm always here to help as well. I might not have every single answer that you need, but I will try to talk through the situation with you as best as I can. If possible, contact home. But if this seems like something that is going on at home, contacting home might not be the best answer either. So when you do contact home, keep things short, keep things brief. Don't use other students' names. Keep them direct and to the point, and make sure that when you're sending these messages, be compassionate, offer empathy. Just simply ask, these are a few things I've been noticing. Have you been noticing these things as well? And of course, if we ever think that there is some sort of emotional or physical abuse or some neglect or something like that, please, please remember that you are a mandate reporter. You legally have to report these things. And I know that sounds scary. I was terrified to report the first thing that I noticed. It was nerve-wracking, to be honest, because I hadn't been teaching for a long time. I didn't necessarily know what I was supposed to do or what I was supposed to fill out or how I was supposed to file it or report it. So I had to seek out help from other people in the building. I had to ask around and say, "Hey, have you done this before?" And of course, I don't want to tell that student's situation to every single person in the building. You can just simply say, "Hey, I've been noticing some things with a student and I think I need to report them. Can I get some advice?" Go to your administration or go to your counselors. Just get help if you need to, because it's okay to admit that you don't know how to do something. So, before we go here today, I just want you to remember that anxiety comes in many different forms and can come on at a moment's notice. Think back to your list. When are some of those times that you felt anxious? Was it something that had been building for a while? Was it something that came on suddenly? What were your signs and symptoms? How did you act? Were you kind of irritable? Were you acting different than normal? Think of how you acted in those situations and then have that empathy and think, wow, my students are little human beings. They haven't had 21 plus years to learn how to cope with these situations. So we need to offer them grace. We need to be in tune to the signs and the symptoms that they are showing us. And we need to understand that we need to give them space and time to process, and sometimes we might not be the person that they want to talk to. Maybe they want to talk to a teacher that they had in the past. Maybe they're more comfortable talking to a counselor. Maybe they're seeking help outside of the building and we need to get in contact with that person. But we need to understand that we're not always going to be our students' favorite person to talk to. We're not always going to be our students' go to person as much as we want to be. But as long as we are doing everything we can to find them someone that they can talk to, that they can confide in, that they can talk through the emotions that they're feeling with, then we are 100% doing our job. We are giving them the space to feel the way they need to feel and to cope with what they are going through. So just continually show them that you're there for them, whether it's something small like they're feeling anxious because they got in an argument with their student, or whether it's something bigger because of everything else that's going on in the world or going on at home. Before we go today, I just want to remind you, as much as it is our job to help our students with math and reading and science and social studies, It's also a big part of our job to help our students emotionally. So don't minimize things. If you notice students are acting different than normal, take the time, get on their level, talk with them, see how you can help them, go through some deep breathing with them, and just help them know that you are there to help them in any way you possibly can. All right, guys, that's all for today's episode. Hopefully, today's episode was thought provoking, got you thinking a little bit, and is going to help you recognize some of these signs that your students are displaying that maybe we weren't as in tune to before. So, of course, if you ever need anything, you can always reach out to me. I'm here to help however I can. And as always, I hope you have a fantastic week. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the North Dakota Teaching Podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. We really appreciate that effort. Be sure to tune in to the next episode for more teaching tips to make an impact. Until next time.